Hello everybody and welcome back to another vinyl record review. Today we have the 2020 album from the New Yorker, I don't know how to say it, New York rock band The Strokes. Is this it? This is the cover to Jean-Michel Basquiat painting. Incredible painter. I don't like paint. I'm not into paintings and artists like that, but this thing is just beautiful. I want to frame it. We got a production sheet on the back. This is a very tumultuous album for the band because this is their most experimental and out there project yet, and probably their most indie. They are a huge pioneer of the indie genre, and they either created it, if not them, it was the Smiths, but I think they created it. They started with New York Garage. That's kind of music, and they branched out just so far. This album does sound very different though, because it does have Rick Rubin production. And Rick Rubin, he's not liked by everyone. I think he does good producing sometimes, especially with his early 80s stuff like Run DMC and stuff that helped to push rap into the mainstream. And I think he has some good credits in the modern day with like Yeezus and Utopia and stuff like that. But his pop and indie stuff has been a little weird, especially recently with his working with Tyler Childers on his 2025 album Snipe Hunter. Yeah, I feel like he does a lot with projects and helping the bands decide what they want to do entirely. It came in like the cellophane wrapping on the front, which is peeling, which isn't cool, but yeah, it's got the track listing and stuff like that. This is the sleeve it came in, and it's just a black record. Normal RCA record. So yeah, let's just get into the track listing. Oh, I don't know why this is. Whoa. Okay, this is a little bit of technical difficulties, but push through and go the wrong way. Hold on, guys. Alright, I'm not gonna lie to you, that was very embarrassing. But let's get into the track listing. Side 1 starts with The Adults Are Talking, which is like I don't know, it starts very cool in a very cool way. I feel like this is a great one to introduce us into the album because it's a little harder in comparison to the other tracks off this album, and I think it represents it very well. Julian Casablancas has some great falsettos on this one and great singing voice all around. After that, it ends with like the band like murmuring and stuff in the background. I'm not sure how much of this is actually a band and how much is production, but I do feel like a fair amount is the band themselves. Playing instruments, I feel like there's some stuff behind the keyboard, but we'll get into that, behind the computer, but we'll get into that later. It goes into Selfless, which starts with this piano ostinato, which is just really good. Very 80s like. Same with Brooklyn Bridge to chorus. Great like 80s song. Great. Bad Decisions talks about bad decisions. What a Shock. And I think that one starts out really well. I believe it's another 80s song. A lot of synth wave stuff on this project. Then it goes into Eternal Summer, which has some of the greatest singing I have heard. And I don't know, Julian's voice on this is just so good, and it's blossomed and it's gone so far from the dirtiness that was Is This It? Very 80s, very summery song. I do recommend. Side 2 opens with, overall, side 1, great, excellent, maybe perfect, but definitely excellent. Side 2 opens with At the Door, which I did not like as much. I thought the chorus was decent, but I thought the verses were lackluster. a lot of the verses on this project, a lot of the lines are just like one sentence, like they don't really mean that much. They don't convey that much, but like, I don't know, it's weird. And this one, I just don't feel like is that well done. Lot of production from Rick on this one and the last two, Bad Decisions and Eternal Summer. You can really hear his influence with messing with stuff like volume and things like that in the background, which is just, yeah, I don't know if it had to be done. I do like that it does add some sonic depth to the album, but I don't know if it necessarily needed to be done on stuff like this. After that is Why Are Sundays So Depressing, which is another great one that really got me into this album. Overall, just a great song, I'm not gonna lie. And then It's Not the Same Anymore, which is talking about like the past and like very reminiscent, talking about like a relationship that's not the same anymore. Big shock. And then last one is Ode to the Mets, which is just like driving, powering to this chorus, all ramping up to this with the I got it all, I got it all. Julian's vocals on this are just so good. I can't get over how good they are. Ode to the Mets, this was made in 2020. I'm pretty sure the Mets were pretty bad in 2020. In the big 2-5, as I'm recording this, they're pretty good, I think. I think they might miss the playoffs. But they got Pete Alonso. I think they still have Pete Alonso. Hold on, let me check. They do still, in fact, have the polar bear Pete Alonso. I think this song just ends the album perfectly, and I think when you go to the juxtaposition of starting with The Adults Are Talking in comparison to Ode to the Mets, I think it's a great bookend, and I do really appreciate this on this album, especially with some very experimental and out there choices with putting Bad Decisions, Eternal Summer, and At the Door on the pacing. For me, that's what I thought was definitely a strong decision that they made. And so overall, I do really like this album. I think the Strokes have better. I think they have one album better for sure. Is This It Is Perfect. Room on Fire might be better. And I really like 80s Come Down Machine. I think that's really good. Speaking of 80s, very 80s inspired with the synths and stuff like that. And I think it does work really well. And I think they use it really well with this 2020 soundscape. Lastly, I just want to touch on the name. I probably should have done this earlier, but The New Abnormal, this album came out 2 weeks after the start of the COVID-19 spread. So, very new abnormal. We were all living in. This album just came out around that time, and Strokes are notorious for not releasing albums at great times, like the September release of Is This It in 2001. So yeah, overall, I really like this album. I think it could have been better. I think Rick Rubin influenced this a lot, and I think this could be better overall. Maybe with vocals cleaned up. I do like them rougher though. It's really hard for me to pick this one. I think I'm gonna go with an 89. I don't quite think it's a 90. And I think it's close to being on 100. But after my first listen, I remember not entirely loving this album. I remember loving songs, not entirely loving the whole thing. But with each listen, it gets better. And so that's why I think I can only give it an 89. Alright guys, tell me what you think. Did you like it? Did you love it? Like, comment, all the things. And have a great day. Bye.